Have you ever felt, deep down, that an unseen force holds you back, trapping you in an endless cycle of debt, doubt, and fear for the future? You get up, fulfill your obligations, pay your bills, rest, and the next day, it's the same old story. In the end, nothing tangible remains, just the disillusionment of a constant struggle for survival. What if I told you about a hidden paradigm, subtle as a shadow, that keeps you in this quiet confinement of mediocrity without you even realizing it? A conviction so influential, it dictates the rhythm of your existence, making wealth, fortune, and prosperity seem like gifts for others, not for you. When I was young, I grew up convinced that I had little worth, that success was for special people. I didn't even finish high school properly. I dropped out after the 8th grade. I tried to attend a technical school, but a thumb injury led me to quit. That misfortune wasn't merely physical, it also cut down any glimmer of hope I harbored for tomorrow. I found myself entangled in modest, low-prestige jobs, without prospects, changing tires, lubricating vehicles, doing any manual labor that came my way to make ends meet. I was young, full of uncertainties, and carried a feeling of worthlessness greater than my own aspirations. At that time, the term, abundance, sounded distant, almost legendary to me, something for others, not for someone like me. But it was precisely this perception, this ingrained belief that I wasn't worthy, that kept me in poverty. I didn't need a complex business plan to fail, it was enough to acquiesce to that inner voice proclaiming, "You are not deserving, you are incapable, you don't have the right to aspire to greatness." This invisible conviction acts like a mental landfill. It burdens, gradually wears us down, and prevents any effort, no matter how dedicated, from leading us anywhere. You can toil hard your whole life, save penny by penny, but if this dominant belief persists, everything you build will be fated to crumble at the first sign of adversity. Why? Because the sabotaging intellect will work behind the scenes, feeding fear, doubt, insecurity. The dilemma is that many don't even realize they are hostages to this belief. They wake up, go to work, make payments, sleep, and think, "But I am diligent, I deserve to progress." Is that true? Do you sincerely believe that? Or has your psyche already programmed an automatic reaction, "You won't succeed"? It's better to stay grounded, not fantasize too much, so you don't get disappointed. I lived this reality. And for several years, I adopted this internal dialogue as irrefutable truth. Until at one point something happened that radically altered my path, something that opened my eyes to a new perspective, that there is something much bigger for me, and for you too. This transformation didn't come from a new position, nor from a miraculous formula, it emerged from within. And it's about this intimate transformation, about this hidden conviction, that I want to talk to you in this video. Because the reality is stark, unequivocal, and liberating. If you believe, deep down, that you don't deserve to prosper, then you are undermining your own triumph, even without realizing it. And until this belief is uncovered, challenged, and replaced, no matter how much you struggle, your destiny will be ruled by it. Stay with me until the end. The journey begins now. The moment that hidden conviction began to fade within me, everything around me seemed transformed, but, before that event, I spent years clinging to the old mental mold that imprisoned me. And this is where many succumb. They don't realize that the mind doesn't change merely by willpower. It changes when you start questioning what has always been accepted as truth. I spent my life convinced that opulence was a distant privilege, something accessible only to individuals with education, connections, or good fortune. But what was the truth, after all? The truth was that I felt fear. Fear of failing, fear of trying and getting hurt again, fear of aspiring to what I believed I didn't deserve. And perhaps you feel that too, that tightness in your chest when considering something new, that voice whispering, "Don't venture out, you won't prosper, stick to what you already know." How many times have you derailed an opportunity before even exploring it, just to avoid the possibility of disappointment? When days get tough and money seems to evaporate, it's common to blame circumstances. Have you ever thought that way? The national scenario is challenging, the pay is meager, the economic situation isn't favorable. Yes, all of that is true, but none of it explains why some individuals manage to create prosperity even starting from scratch, while others struggle their entire lives without advancing. And that's no coincidence. Recent studies in psychology show that more than 70% of the financial decisions people make are guided by feelings and by subconscious patterns formed in childhood. It's not your income that defines your financial destiny, it's your emotional interaction with capital. The way you think, feel, and react to money shapes your future more than the amount you earn. I internalized this through experience. When I worked in the fire department, my pay was scarce, but the primary issue wasn't the salary, it was my limited perception of who I could become. And it was precisely for that reason that, upon encountering the book that transformed my life, something began to unravel within me. My first thought was, this isn't for me. However, my second thought, more discreet, more serene, whispered, what if it is? Sometimes, all life needs to change is a crack in the old structure of your mind. A modest opening that allows a ray of light to enter. When that happens, a new reality begins to emerge. And countless examples of this abound. One of the most notable cases I've ever witnessed was that of Jim Carrey. He grew up in poverty, literally spending nights in the car with his family during part of his childhood. However, unlike so many who accept such a situation as irrevocable, he began to write himself hypothetical checks and affirm daily that he would be a great actor. He had nothing, but chose to believe he deserved everything. And that conviction, persistent, reiterated, emotional, shaped his reality in a way the world categorized as sudden success. But it wasn't sudden. It was built within him long before it materialized externally. Meanwhile, ask yourself, how many times have you abandoned an endeavor because you assumed it wasn't meant for you? How many opportunities have you let slip away because you deemed yourself too small, too inadequate, too old, too immature, too exhausted? How many times have you convinced yourself that it's not feasible, when, in truth, the only infeasibility lay in remaining tied to the same belief that has harmed you so many times? If, up to this point, you're feeling that this content is resonating within you, perform a simple yet powerful gesture. Click like and subscribe to the channel right now. This helps the channel reach a larger audience who, like you, is looking to break free from old mental patterns that keep them confined to an existence less than they deserve. This modest act reinforces the message, supports the initiative, and allows me to continue offering life-changing content. The hidden conviction that keeps you in scarcity doesn't come from an isolated event, but from a silent accumulation of experiences, judgments, comparisons, fears, and inferences that you assimilated before you even understood what it meant to be someone in life. It emerges when you witness your parents arguing over finances, when you hear that money doesn't grow on trees, when you observe someone prosperous and someone comments, those people only got rich through illicit means, when you get a bad grade and someone remarks, you'll never be good at that, when you try something new and your mistake becomes a source of ridicule. Each fragment of this coalesces, intricately woven into your mind, and at a certain point, you begin to believe that the problem lies with you. And this belief, once consolidated, becomes the prism through which you perceive the entire universe. It leads you to believe you're not worthy of raising your living standards. It generates guilt when your earnings increase. It makes you recoil when you receive approval. It prompts you to retreat when something too grand, too excellent, too unusual manifests itself. It makes you live on autopilot, aiming merely to subsist, thinking that it's okay to live with little, when, in reality, you were born to manifest abundance. And perhaps you've never pondered this, but most people live exactly this way, trapped in a psychological cycle that prevents them from crossing the boundary of emotional comfort. Have you ever noticed that when someone dares to step out of that circle, launching a venture, investing, taking a risk on an innovative idea, an overwhelming fear almost always emerges, paralyzing them? This fear isn't about the future. It's about the past that still dictates thought. Science attests to this truth. Neuroscience studies reveal that the majority of our financial choices originate in the emotional system of the brain, not the rational one. This means, it's not the absence of logic that prevents you from achieving greater earnings, it's your emotional programming that inhibits you from believing it's possible. That is the very reason why so many people, upon receiving one raise, spend it all the following month. It's why many individuals who acquire vast sums of money, such as inheritances, prizes, or bonuses, lose them with such speed. It's not bad luck. Nor is it incompetence. It's the hidden conviction that whispers, this isn't for you. Return to the level where you feel safe. And when this conviction prevails, even talent is squandered. One notable example of this is the journey of Mike Tyson. One man with one extraordinary capability, one almost superhuman natural gift, someone who reached the world's pinnacle at one young age. He possessed everything: recognition, strength, skill, opportunities. Yet, he did not foster one healthy internal perception of himself. He didn't believe he was worthy of stability, abundance, serenity. He was one colossus on the outside, but internally, he carried deep emotional scars. And when someone doesn't consider themselves worthy of prosperity, success transforms into one burden too heavy to bear. His financial, emotional, and personal life collapsed precisely because his mind wasn't in harmony with the abundance he had achieved externally. This is the destructive power of one mistaken belief. It not only hinders your progress but also annihilates what you've accomplished if, by chance, you ascend too quickly. I myself experienced one smaller-scale version of this collapse. Before transforming my way of thinking, I had already had chances. I had already met people who could help me. I had already received valuable advice. But I sabotaged everything before it could flourish. One time, I remember being praised for one job I did at one of the companies I worked for. It was something simple, nothing of one major scale, but it was well executed, and someone noticed. That person said I could have one brilliant future. Instead of embracing it as encouragement, I felt uncomfortable. I felt exposed. I felt like one imposter. I became so disturbed that, one few days later, I requested to leave. Why? Because I didn't believe I fit one image of someone competent. The belief told me, you don't belong at this level. And I obeyed. The impoverished mind always finds one way to keep you in scarcity, even when the world opens one path for you. Now I ask you, how many doors have you closed on your own? How many times have you walked away from one opportunity because you judged it wasn't the right moment? How many times have you procrastinated too long on something you could have started today? How many times have you jeopardized one relationship, one project, one idea, one chance, all because you felt you weren't enough? It is at this point that I wish to propose one challenge to you. One direct, yet impactful challenge. Over the next 3 days, whenever one thought of self-sabotage arises in your mind, I'm not capable, this isn't for me, it will go wrong, it's too risky, you will stop, breathe, and mentally respond, this is just one old belief. It's not reality. Do this with persistence. Just for 3 days. You will be surprised by the transformation that this small act of lucidity generates within you. When you begin to understand that there is one latent conviction controlling you, something profound happens. Existence stops being one succession of inevitable setbacks and becomes one direct mirror of what you think about yourself. This is the moment when many retreat, because facing one's innermost self is painful. It hurts to recognize that, behind so many years of effort, there is one silent force that has always pulled you back to the same place. It hurts to realize that it wasn't the absence of opportunity, nor the lack of intelligence, nor bad luck, but rather one mental pattern that you inherited and nurtured unknowingly. But it is here that the true metamorphosis begins, when affliction converts into discernment. The first step you need to take is to learn to identify this hidden belief. It manifests when you utter phrases like, I can't, I'm not good at this isn't for me, I don't deserve all this, things never work out for me. And if you observe carefully, these phrases appear precisely at moments when your life tries to lead you to one new stage. It's as if the mind says, don't go up, it's dangerous. And perhaps you've never questioned it, but why does your head feel so heavy when one genuine opportunity arises? Why do you experience that mix of apprehension and inadequacy when something good knocks on your door? Have you ever considered that it's precisely at that moment that your disguised belief emerges? I remember one particular episode that made this very clear to me. I was still working as a firefighter, and one colleague told me about one job proposal that offered higher remuneration and opportunities for advancement. He insisted that I try for it, stating that I had potential. I even agreed to get the information, but when I got home and looked at the paper with the details, something inside me froze. My heart raced, my hands sweated, and one voice echoed, who do you think you are? This is too big for you. Without much hesitation, I crumpled the paper and discarded it. I literally threw away one opportunity because, deep down, I believed I wasn't worthy of it. At that instant, I still didn't have one emotional structure to cross this invisible barrier. This is the type of incarceration I'm talking about, the prison that keeps you in scarcity even before the world denies you anything. Identifying this belief is the initial step, but replacing it is the second and perhaps the most crucial. And here I want you to understand one fundamental thing: you don't replace one belief with brutality, with empty affirmations, or with phrases mechanically repeated. You replace one belief by creating one new emotional experience. The human mind isn't altered by reason, it's changed by emotion. That's why so many people recite positive phrases for months, but don't observe one authentic change. They express one thing, but feel another. And the mind always obeys what you feel, not what you declare. So, how do you generate this new emotional experience? Start small. Imagine scenarios that represent the life you long for, not as one distant ideal, but as something that is already present. Visualize yourself making financial decisions with confidence. Imagine yourself frequenting environments you once considered not for you. Imagine yourself talking to people who once intimidated you. Imagine yourself living with decency, prosperity, calm. And, above all, imagine what it would feel like to finally allow yourself to progress. Don't just think about the scene. Think about what it evokes within you, in your chest, in your breath, in your posture. You need to feel this new identity before you live it. And this isn't idealism, it's science. Recent studies in neuroplasticity demonstrate that the brain doesn't clearly distinguish between one real experience and one intensely visualized experience. If you feel the emotion, the brain registers it as learning. And when this emotion repeats, even for just a few minutes a day, your mind begins to establish one new internal pathway, one new reference. You stop believing the old narrative and start living one new one. And from there, your attitudes change. Your posture shifts. Your gaze transforms. And, undeniably, your results also transform. But there is one delicate point here: you need to break free from the habit of comparison. Because comparison is one of the most potent tools the scarcity belief employs to keep you in one diminished state. When you observe someone who is already at one higher level, you think, "I'll never get there." But what if, instead, you questioned, "What can I learn from this?" Many people become paralyzed because they believe they need to make big moves to transform their lives. But the truth is that big changes begin with small acts. You don't need to change everything today. You only need to alter one small choice, reiterated daily. And here is something to ponder deeply: the most dangerous destitution is not that of the pocket, it is that of the mind. It is the destitution that makes you retreat when you should advance. It is the destitution that makes you accept crumbs when you should demand abundance. It is the destitution that prevents you from recognizing your own worth. It does not refer to money. It refers to identity. Now that you have discerned this hidden belief, identified how it formed, and begun to understand the emotional impact it exerts on every decision in your life, the time has come to consolidate the transformation. Because true change doesn't occur the instant you understand something, it happens when that understanding becomes one habit, one way of existing, one new identity that you subtly assume every day, even when no one is observing. And it is here that so many people give up, because they expect to feel confidence before acting. Conviction doesn't manifest before initiative. It emerges from consistent achievement. It's similar to rekindling one fire that has been inactive for one long period. Initially, only one minimal flicker is perceived, then one modest temperature, and only after that does it convert into one robust flame, strong enough to illuminate one entire journey. I know the battle against this inner inertia well, because at the beginning of my own journey, one insistent voice urged me to stay in my comfort zone. It seemed illogical to believe in the possibility of forging one superior existence. I lacked education, influential relationships, one success story. I carried one baggage of failures, temporary jobs, debts, and one overwhelming feeling of insufficiency. However, even with such adversities, I adopted one distinct course of action, modest, hesitant, but new. And the result? Each step that challenged that old conviction diminished the power of self-sabotage. This exact thing will happen to you, provided you take the first step and don't look back. To solidify this renewed perspective, it's essential to build 3 fundamental pillars: deliberation, constancy, and your surrounding environment. Deliberation is the intimate commitment to break free from previous patterns, even if apprehension persists. Constancy is what transforms this choice into a new neural pathway, establishing a mind that begins to operate from a perspective of abundance, rather than scarcity. And your surrounding environment is the bedrock of your metamorphosis, especially during moments when inspiration wanes, for it will certainly falter. The environment isn't limited to your home, it encompasses the people you interact with, the content you consume, the habits you practice, and even the arrangement of your physical surroundings. Have you ever noticed how cluttered spaces drain your vitality? How pessimistic individuals erode your capacity to act? How certain online information generates a feeling of inferiority, inadequacy, or stagnation? Your environment subtly shapes the range of what you believe is achievable. And a crucial detail, it's impossible to maintain a mindset of emotional deprivation while simultaneously aspiring to a life of abundance. No fortune can be sustained when the psyche remains trapped by past baggage. Behavioral research indicates that those who achieve significant existential turnarounds begin with small routines: 5 minutes dedicated to morning visualization, 20 minutes of uplifting reading daily, weekly financial planning, and small individual triumphs that strengthen self-governance and courage. It's not about undertaking grand actions, it's about practicing small deeds with regularity. Your mental identity is forged by what you do frequently. And what you do frequently sculpts the reality you experience. I'd like you to visualize, for a brief moment, your life 6 months from now, if you were to start acting today as someone who genuinely trusts their capabilities. Think about what it would be like to wake up without the guidance of fear, guilt, or deprivation. Think about what it would be like to decide with clarity, free from that visceral anguish. Think about what it would be like to face opportunities and feel momentum instead of stagnation. Think about what it would be like, finally, to feel you are on the right path, not because of a fortuitous external event, but because of a deep transformation within yourself. To experience this in a tangible way, I propose a final challenge. For the next 7 nights, before resting, write down a simple sentence on a piece of paper: clear, direct, and transformative. I welcome prosperity into my existence. Then, close your eyes for 1 minute and visualize what it would be like to exist under this authorization. Just 1 minute. This is enough to rekindle the inner flame that may have been extinguished for many decades. This is the type of simple act that changes entire life paths. And I share with you, with the deepest sincerity, your imprisonment is not due to weakness, inability, or misfortune. You are imprisoned because you have endorsed a falsehood about yourself for an extended period. However, by unmasking this deception, it loses its power to subjugate you. From now on, each of your actions will represent a foundation, sometimes slow, sometimes fast, but invariably progressive, toward a life more congruent with your true self, and not with the image the past tried to impose upon you. Please engrave this in your mind: no one alters their existential path by maintaining the same self-perception. It is imperative to detach yourself from what has brought you to this point to embrace what awaits you ahead. And by taking the first step, no matter how small, you will observe something remarkable. The cosmos reacts to realization, not merely to intention. It is in manifestation that metamorphosis begins. It is in execution that life's opportunities blossom. It is in inner transformation that abundance, finally, discovers its gateway. And as you allow these reflections to resonate within you, remember, your internal changes begin to clear external paths. Existence invariably responds to your resonance. Continue to tune your frequency, continue to allow yourself to expand, continue to choose a way of thinking in alignment with what you truly desire to experience. And if this explanation has provided clarity, encouragement, or merely the insight that was vital to you today, please pass it on to someone you care about who might need this same enlightenment right now. Occasionally, a simple communication has the power to transform a person's day or even their entire existence. I express my sincere gratitude for your participation here, and we move forward together, progressing to the next stage.